Hi there and welcome back, friends of a thoughtful gaming experience. This is your host Emmanuel Can, and we're here for a Wizardry 8 character guide for priests. Now let's look at that priest, shall we? Now what's the priest group role? Now the priest is basically about buffs and heals and cures. He also has debuffs or can do some damage or to opponents. But the main thing is buffs, heals and cures. He's the classic healer class. He can also pray for a miracle, as you can see here, and dispel undead. These are his specialties. And he gets a divinity skill bonus, which is the most useful of these abilities and traits. But the others are also pretty good. So we're here in this guide going for a buffer, healer and caster priest. There are other priest builds out there, even up to something for melee with a mace and flail and something like that. But that's all, I think, rather secondary builds, and we're going for the standard here. Like just the standard, the priest, as he was probably, or she was probably intended, a caster. Kind of a sturdy caster. So, yeah, what attributes should you take? Like, the primary attributes here are a good start, but at the start you should not really raise vitality. You should go for piety, that's good. You can also start with intelligence, but you should go for piety and speed. And after that, intelligence and vitality. If you're going for a buffer or healer or caster, you can also raise piety and intelligence, or speed and intelligence. Speed and intelligence will be a very offensive build, but we're going to go here for a buffer, healer and caster. So first take vitality and speed, max that out, get the skills for that, and definitely then max intelligence. And after that you can go for vitality, and even after that, if you have some points, go for senses, which will improve your initiative even more. And yeah, that for your attributes. Now, from these attributes that I've just discussed, there are some races that are better than others, definitely. For the buffer, healer, caster role of the priest, the elf is my favorite. He has good values in intelligence and piety from the start, relatively good speed. He has low vitality, so there come his lower bonus points, but he has very good resistance modifiers with a resistance to mental spells, which is very useful for a priest. You don't want your healer controlled by the enemy. That would be like doom in some situations. So that's why the priest is my favorite, and the human is close up next. You don't have very high resistance modifiers, but you have a good distribution of primary attributes, and the priest gets some pretty okay equipment, so some strength is okay as well. There are other choices there that are also good, but not as good in my opinion as the elf or the human. These are dwarves, and as you see here, the dwarves have very low intelligence, which you will have to raise sooner or later. But nevertheless, a dwarf is a pretty good priest, even though he has very low intelligence, very low speed, very low senses, which makes him like have a very low initiative. So that's the weakness of the dwarf. That's why I would rather recommend an elf or a human. Then you have the gnome, who is also pretty low on the speed and senses side, but otherwise has pretty good resistance modifiers and good bonus points. And there's of course also another furry choice, which is the Rawolf. And the Rawolf has pretty low intelligence and is also a little slower, but would otherwise make a pretty good priest. I think better than the dwarf or the gnome, but like on par with the levels. But the elf and the human are, I think, better choices overall. Even though, yeah, you can get, as you see here, pretty high levels for vitality early on, and for speed it's okay as well. So Rawolf priest absolutely super good. You have, which is a rarity, a higher resistance to divinity spells, which is very, very good against death effects. So the Werewolf is there as a pretty good choice as well. But my favorite overall is, now where are we? The Elf, which is just a standard caster go-to. And he can use all the equipment, which is why I don't recommend the Fairy. The Fairy has pretty good values and also the faster magic power recovery, but yeah. You just cannot use most of the equipment the priest can use, so I'm going for a priest, this time a male, because like all the stamina classes you would mostly take females, so for a change I want a male elf. And what spells should you choose as your first spells? Now there are different spells that are useful early. In this case, which are the spells that are useful early? There are Heal Wounds, Make Wounds, and Paralyze. Why not Bless? Bless is indeed very useful, but you're quickly getting a book for that, so I wouldn't take it as a starting spell. And the same goes for Stamina. Stamina is pretty good to fill up your group member's stamina, but you're also finding a book for that pretty quickly, so I would start with Heal Wounds, as this is just such a basic skill and will help you much in training divinity. And for Paralyzes, because if Paralyze comes through, you will be very good off. And with an elf, you have pretty high intelligence, which helps your Paralyzes get through. So start with Heal Wounds and Paralyze, and see that you have a useful spell in every section here, in every, not spell school, but like a kind of spell to increase your skill in these spells. You'll quickly find a light book, use that on the priest and train your fire spells, and also train your air spells, your earth spells, and your mental spells. They'll all be quite important later on, so make sure to do that with the help of books mostly, and save your spell picks for the later very, very good spells. That would be my recommendation. And yeah, for the totally late game spells, you will have trouble sometimes to find the spell books. So save spell picks where you can, use books instead. But for absolutely important spells, it's okay to use a spell pick. So that's for spell picks. Now for skills, what should you do as a priest? You should put all your points that you can into divinity. This is your primary casting school and influences your spell choices that you have. You can also put points into fire, water, mental, and divine magic. In that case, you could start like that. But as a priest, you have like limited amount of skills. I wouldn't recommend to increase your staff and wand or mace and flail or shield or something like that skills. They should raise on their own by use. And if you don't have someone with high communication, then raise communication. You can also go for artifacts if you're going for the caster priest who has later on higher intelligence. You can go for communication and artifacts, and then you'll have these two skills that will help you much out of the way. But in this case, we'll assume you have, like, for example, a bard for communication and a bishop for artifacts. And we're going just to raise the first casting skills that you have here. To have a better chance to cast these spells successfully at the start, because a good start is always more fun. So we're going for divinity, water magic, and divine magic here. You can see here when you go back, this is divine magic, this is water magic, earth magic, air magic, fire magic, and mental magic. So if you're going the same route as I go, and make sure to put points into divine and water magic. If you're going for something like charm, which is a non-combat spell, as you see here, as is light, which is just a buff, then yeah, you could raise them, but in that case it would really not be a good choice. So go for Paralyze and Heal Wounds, and then for the corresponding magics, Water Magic and Divine Magic. So let's continue here. We'll have a nice priest. You have also pretty nice looking female elves. You have a very broad selection of portraits. Let's go with this grey-haired, probably very wise and old elf. And yeah. We'll go with that caster priest here. So what would be your position in this roster first? You should take one of the first two spots, as you will be the one of the prime buffers for your party, and also one of the main debuffers. So definitely put him in the first two slots. If you move after that and still have some parts of the round left, your priest will cast first if he's put in the first slots in the roster. Like, the position from initiative is just if you start the whole combat round and don't move. So this is why this is important. Put him in one of the first two positions. Then let's review the character. What do you have as a start? A quarterstaff, which is pretty good at the start. Extended, so this means it already plays into your position in the crosshair. Put that caster priest in the back line. He is not tough. He's pretty weak if you skill him like that in the melee area. So just put him in the back line, let him be protected, and help your party from the back line, which will be a very good choice. You should go for extended weapons preferably, or you can go for a mace and, for example, a thief's buckler, which increases your speed even more, which will raise your initiative, and go that route. If you say you will never attack with melee weapons, that would be the choice, and that would be my choice also for a curer, buffer and caster, that you'll, in perspective, take a one-handed weapon and then, for example, a thief's buckler in the offhand. Then in the alternate primary weapon, you can go for just throwing and sling, which would be the go-to skill. It's not that useful, to be honest, but there may be a situation in Wizardry 8. There can be always that situation where you have no mana anymore and you want to fire, and you'll need just 2 hit points to eliminate one opponent. And in that case, let your priest throw his stones via the sling, and maybe you'll win that critical fight then. So now the position in the crosshair I already said. It's the back line for that buffer, healer and caster priest. Now have fun with your new party helper number 1, and happy gaming to you. This is Immanuel Can signing out.